Bonjour, good morning, everyone. We'll get started. Call to order. Roll call, please. Here.
Here. Here.
We'll start with invocation with Mr. Gene Goodsky. I'm kidding. Thanks, Bubba. Thanks, Bubba. Thank you. Very good. Thank you very much, Jean and Bubba. And just for everybody's information, a lot of people don't understand or know about a traditional burial. And Bubba, Clarence Roy, did hand out a guide for our staff to use with regards to a traditional burial. I believe we talked about that last time, where they would like to know what needs to be done by when. So I appreciate Bubba doing that for us and for our staff, so that we can make sure that the needs are met for the family. Go ahead, Brandon.
Right. I know, it's tough learning our traditions and cultures and things like that. I know one of the things that I believe, in my opinion, with most of it is a lot of people get turned off that that it has turned into a money thing, about money. And we have one drum that gets $400 or $500, and another drum that doesn't want anything. And like Bubba was saying, he goes to help and all he expects is a handshake. And when we're on this side of it and we see and we hear our staff getting argued at over $200 or $400, that's a piece to it too. And I think that needs to be said also. So somewhere along the line, we have to all figure out our culture and what it's about. Thank you.
Miigwech, Brandon. With that, Corey, we'll go on with the agenda.
We have one addition, is a resolution that Mark emailed up yesterday evening to Kathy regarding the courthouse project, so we'll add that under other.
Okay.
That's all.
Corey, can I add under, just for discussion purposes, the leave share policy under Miranda, if that's okay, Miranda, just for discussion purposes?
Sure.
Any other additions to the agenda? Not, I'll call for a motion to approve with those additions.
Move.
Moved by Travis, is there a second? Second by Dave, all in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, silent, motion carried. Approval of the minutes from April 18th, 2018 at Net Lake.
Move.
Move to approve made by Ray. Is there a second? Seconded by Dave. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, silent, motion carried.
First, we have introduction of new staff. Which department wants to go first?
Good morning, Donna.
Good morning. I have two new staff to introduce. First, Daylene Chosa. She is the Victim Services Advocate Administrative Assistant. Emily Gustason. She is our PRC, Purchase Referred Care Clerk.
Good morning. I also have two new people. Christina Maley, some of you have already met her. She started on March 5th. She's the Ecological Resources Program Director. She takes care of the water program, the lake, wild rice. We finally caught a meeting. Sorry for our lateness.
That's okay.
Then we have Stan Day. He's the lead program coordinator. He takes care of the lead-based paint, the authorized program we have with EPA. When did he start? He started March 19th, so they've both been on board for quite a while, and they're doing very well. Thank you.
Thank you.
I believe that is all. The consent agenda.
Okay, next we have the consent agenda. We have, we have approved sole source request for purchase of service agreement between Boys Fort Early Childhood Program and Range Mental Health Center. And also we have a poll that was done for the authorizing of myself to sign the administrative order on consent regarding Clean Water Act violations at the Lake Vermilion Wastewater Treatment Ponds facility. Call for a motion to approve the consent agenda. Moved by David, is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Travis. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, silent, motion carried. Go ahead.
Second one was authorizing you to sign the
I did that.
Clean Water Act?
We did that.
You guys do that?
Yeah.
Okay. Tara Gizek with the selection of the Conservation Committee members.
Good morning again, Tara.
Morning. Did you guys get to look over the
Mm-hmm.
selection? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Bring
Oh.
it down.
Can you hear?
Can you hear?
Okay. It looks
We
like
can
you
go-
need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 members.
Seven members, but 6 from wherever, and then 1 Vermilion. 1 Vermilion and 1 Vermilion alternate. That's the only specific that we need.
And also 2 additional alternate members, correct?
Right.
Okay. 6, 7, 8, 9 members, 2 total.
And then keep in mind, there's 2 that don't live in Net Lake or Vermilion. One lives very close. So the code does say reside in the area. So if you
Okay.
consider either of those cities, you know, residing within the area. I don't know if IT can help make provisions for meetings, video conferencing or anything like that, so. I know we did for a few meetings, right? The senior management meetings that we had. I don't know how difficult that is to set up if we're,
Yeah, they can.
if you want to consider that.
Getting a thumbs up from our IT.
Okay.
We need 7 for the committee itself.
Those are the voting members,
The
7 voting members.
Yep. And then 3 alternates. with one specifically from Vermillion,
Right.
correct?
Question about that. Do we end up having just one representative from Vermillion, or is that what that means, or can we appoint
As long as they can make it to the meetings, that's, if you want to
They
appoint
can go on the
more
committee members.
that live in Vermillion, that's
Mhm.
all up to you.
because we're all part of the same
Yep.
band,
Mhm.
using the same resources?
Right.
I do have one question. There's 2 elder advisory members. So that's in addition to the 9, we need 11 then. 2 elders, correct?
Yeah, you
Okay.
can go ahead and, but the committee is the one that appoints those.
Oh, your committee does?
Yeah,
Okay, then we don't have to do that. Okay.
yeah. The only ones that you do are the voting members.
Okay,
Or I'm sorry, the actual committee.
okay.
Mhm.
You want us to just fill in names here on this?
Yep, just give me 7 names and 2 alternates.
Or should we-
Do you want to do it?
And then the ones that, for Vermillion rep and Vermillion alternate, I'd like those specifically that you recommend, that you all vote on.
Corey, how has this been done in the past? with the-
Usually every council member is actually selected at least one of the committee members. Just, hey, out of this list, I'll nominate this person.
Like a nominate, yeah.
And then,
Okay.
and then you go down, and obviously Ray being the Vermillion rep usually recommends the Vermillion. And in the past too, I think when we developed the code and we developed the committee, the reason we only had one committee member from Vermillion, it was always tough for that person to make the meetings, you know, and so a lot of times they were a no-show. Otherwise, there would be more representation on there, but I think now with like our
Mhm.
like our IT department and our interactive communication, they could go to either the center or go to the health building and utilize their facilities if you guys set up the camera and had our meetings that way, kind of like we did with some of the senior management meetings.
Could we also consider, having some of the meetings at Vermillion?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, that could be.
Okay. We'll just go through and everybody pick one, right? Is that
Right.
Okay?
The only thing about, we don't offer mileage, so,
Mhm.
I mean, so that's one thing that we might have to consider.
Well, how many representatives do we have from Vermillion now?
You have 4 on this list.
I mean, how many have we had? How many were on the committee before? appointing
We
this
had
year?
a rep and an alternate every year for the past 5 years.
Should be more.
Let's pick, we'll start with Travis.
Javers.
Ooh, and Doris.
What?
Kevin Strong.
Brandon?
Bill G, is that Little Bill?
Yes.
Bill G. Isham.
Yep, back to Trav.
Bruce Schuster?
I was gonna do that one.
Oh,
That's good, that's good. No, that's good.
There should be what?
A female on the committee.
Oh.
Oh, okay, sorry, Doris. My apologies to Doris. My apologies to Doris, sorry. Okay, we have one more committee member, and then we have the Vermillion representative. David?
See here.
Stan? Vermillion representative, Ray?
Of Terry Strong.
You want us to do the alternates, or do you do that, Tara?
No, you do the alternates also.
Okay, we need 3 alternates also, one specifically from Vermillion, but the other 2 don't necessarily have to be from, they can be from either Nett Lake or Vermillion. Okay, Ray, you're next.
Lena Drift.
Oh, no, you did Terry Strong. Brandon, sorry. You should have said I already did mine.
Oh, I thought I was gonna get
Get
another shot.
shot. Brandon,
Okay, so,
alternate.
Amber Gizik.
You'll get your alternate. Trav? Alternate.
Tracy Hope.
And a Vermillion alternate. Vermillion. Yes, you may go next.
Lena Drift.
Okay. Motion to approve the individuals for the Conservation Committee.
Move.
Moved by Ray. Is there a second? Seconded by Dave. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, silent, motion carried. And these are all 4-year terms. Okay.
and they're staggered, as you can see, so some will be serving longer
Okay.
than others. And Terry Strong is the Vermillion alternate, right?
No,
Or,
Elena.
I'm sorry, the Vermillion rep.
Yes.
Okay. Good, got it.
There you go, Tara.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Donna with a contract with Mike Connor to manage the ambulance department. Ambulance.
Good morning, Donna.
Sir.
Good morning. Good morning. It's time to update and renew Mike Connor's contract for the ambulance service. Just really no major changes other than just kind of specifically outlining, the duties, and then a little slight increase in pay. It's like 30 cents. It's not a whole lot. So otherwise, it's kind of same language as before.
That based on that hourly wage, could we increase it?
We,
For a service
Is
like
this-
that, I think I'd like to see it.
this out of health budget?
Yeah,
This
this
one.
is,
Is this out of your budget?
yeah,
Right.
this is out of our budget, so I would have to, the 30 cents isn't gonna, affect us a whole lot, so if it goes any higher, I would have to look at it. And, yeah. I don't know how much waiver we have or how much we contribute, year to year.
Well,
This is, and it's 16 hours a week.
yeah, I
Um,
guess I just ask that you consider it. And, we can approve this, but if you want to consider it and bring it back with a recommendation, if you think you can increase that. Prove it this way for now, that's the way you proposed it, and
Sure.
we don't want to delay approval of it, but asking that you view your budget and consider it, more of an increase, because our ambulance service is crucial.
It is. It is very,
Donna, it's 16 hours every 2 weeks?
yes.
Okay,
It's not that many hours.
No. not for the work it entails, right, Mike?
And the stress.
There's no other questions on the contract. I'll call for a motion to approve the contract with Michael Connor to manage Boys Fort Ambulance Service. Moved by David. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ray. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Silent? Motion carried.
Thank you.
I had a quick question.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Question. It was brought up to us, before about the, on people who serve.
That'd be a Kim Griner question. Kim, on the stipends or the pay that the ambulance receive on
There's
their,
no way we
on
can
their
do it.
shifts? Are we?
I know she's working with Mark Anderson. We had contacted him a couple months ago and trying to look at the overtime issue, you know, because they're majority, well, actually all of them are employees. And so,
Go ahead, Kim, sorry.
Yeah, well, Donna pretty much said it, that we've been working with Mark Anderson, getting some clarification, because most of the people on the ambulance are employees, and if we pay them as an employee, so we pay the taxes and stuff, then there's overtime issues, but in the, in firefighting and, I know in firefighting, there's, it's 60 hours before overtime kicks in, and Mark was looking at EMS services to see if it falls in that category, and on-call versus, you know, just being on call versus being on an actual call as time worked. So we've been working on that.
Yeah, I know that the issue too was with regards to the on-call pay, because it turned out to be over, it turned out to be over $600, and then they'd receive a 1099, and then they would be taxed on it, and, you know, some
Yeah.
of them took a,
Well, that's why they're considered, they're paid as contractors because of the overtime issues. And when we had looked at this several years ago, the answer we had got is that we couldn't pay them as employees, but we're re-looking at that, and I will touch with Mark again today,
okay,
to see what he's found.
okay, good, great, thank you, Kim. Thank you, guys.
I'm just worried because I heard some people were saying it's not worth it.
yeah,
What I've been doing there is, like with the fire department, I usually tell them, you know, any equipment that you buy, you know, your for your ditch bags and your medical supplies, and then the fire department too, I've been telling them to, any things that you buy, like your gloves, reflective gear and everything, that's tax deductible. But if you work for the tribe, what I've been doing is I've been taking out a little extra and then putting it out of my regular paycheck. So it's something I've been doing, but if they catch on, because they work for Boys Sport, so. But we have a few that don't though, too, so.
Ongoing issue, hopefully it gets resolved. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Next we have Jenny Rowland, the resolution to purchase a new bus and a grant application.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Okay, the first resolution we have is considered FTA numbers at 5310 grant program. This is really kind of exciting because the Cook Hospital Nursing Home and Adult Day Center has approached us to partnership with this grant. They will pay the 20% matching if we're successful in the grant application, and we will provide their outings for their elders until such time as that dollar amount is used up, and then they will continue to pay us. Right now, they pay us 2 trips a week at our fully allocated cost. Then it'll be with this. So it's really an exciting partnership that they would approach us for this.
Piece of equipment.
It's looking like next year's projections for 2019, a bus, we already have what do you call a 4-wheelchair, 8-passenger bus, but in 2019, the same bus will be about $81,000. Right. Right.
Oh, that's good.
I know, it
Just,
is awesome.
I just have a question. Who has ownership?
we have ownership of the bus.
Mhm.
And that was, they made the decision, and I've been working with the Cook Hospital administrators and their board of directors, and they've made this decision because of attrition and retirement, and they just don't have the capacity to support a vehicle with insurance, repairs, maintenance, that kind of stuff. What this allows us to do as ownership of the vehicle is, this bus would be used for elders and individuals with disabilities, and so then it can be used for any segment. We could enter into a contract with or Cook Carefree Living. We could use it for our own elders' activities. Really, it's pretty open once we own that bus, as long as we fulfill our contract with.
And this
Cook
has been approved by the Cook Hospital Board already?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yes, it has.
Okay.
Agreement, has to be developed.
Yes, if we're successful with the grant application, then I will be bringing that contract to the council for approval.
Okay. Any other questions? No? No other questions? I'll call for a motion to approve the resolution. It states that whereas the transportation manager has identified a funding opportunity through the state of Minnesota, and whereas the grant application requires a commitment to share certain costs, and the Cook Hospital Nursing Home Adult Daycare Center has agreed to provide the required 20% matching funds for the purchase of a vehicle that will provide transportation of persons to those facilities. And now therefore be it resolved that the Bois Forte Tribal Council hereby authorizes the transportation manager to apply for a Department of Transportation MnDOT 2018-5310 Enhanced Mobility for Seniors and Individuals with Disabilities Capital Purchase Grant. Be it further resolved that in the event the grant is awarded, the Bois Forte Band of Chippewa and Cook Hospital Nursing Home Adult Day Center intend to enter into agreement that will establish the terms and conditions of the transportation services that will fulfill the persons of the grant. Be it further and finally resolved that the chairwoman and her secretary is authorized to execute the grant or agreement, to designate an official to execute and deliver such other documents as may be necessary to implement the grant, including amendments to such documents. Do we have a motion to approve?
Move.
Moved by Travis. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Dave. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Silent? Motion carried.
Okay, next resolution is for the MnDOT FTA operating expenses grant designated as 5311. And this is the grant that we apply for every single year. The only things that have been changed on this resolution from last year is the date. We apply through the state on their web platform, and we receive our money direct from FTA.
And it's just basically stating that the Bois Forte Reservation Tribal Council hereby authorizes the transportation manager to apply for a Department of Transportation MnDOT 2018 Public Transit Participation Grant Program operating funds to maintain transportation services. And that we've entered into an agreement with the state of Minnesota to provide public transit service. And our public transportation program agrees to provide a local share of 50% of the operating deficit, and that the Bois Forte Public Transportation Program agrees to provide 100% of the local share necessary for expenses that exceed funds available from the state. Do we have a motion to approve the 2018 MnDOT Public Transportation Participation Grant Program?
Question.
Yes.
You apply for this every year, and assured that you're going to get it, and
There were,
why do you have to apply every year?
oh, that's a good question. We apply every year, and then the way I understand it from our previous travel liaison, Don Mohawk, is they determine basically as a sit-down table meeting of how much money is going to go where, depending on what the state has awarded from FTA. and so they do a disbursement meeting. Our funding from them hasn't varied greatly. I think we got 45,000 this year as opposed to 41 or 42, so it's always right in that area. And we use our revenue account as a match for that, because we have to show a match. So we use our revenue account from our contract revenues to match that in order to remain eligible. But I don't know why that, and that may change in the future, but right now this is the convoluted way that we apply for that money.
You have a representative from the, work on getting a multi-year grant program for those operating funds. Thank Mr. Fairbanks.
Very good.
Okay. Do we have a motion to approve the resolution for the grant application? Moved by Ray, is there a second? Seconded by Dave, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, silent, motion carried.
Okay, one more thing.
Announcement.
We've received delivery on 2 brand-new buses last week, part of the original discretionary grant that I wrote with matching funds coming from Fortune Bay. And this is the final 2 buses that have been delivered. Tonight at 5 o'clock, we have the Safe Travel drum ceremony and welcome the 2 new buses into the community like we've done for all our previous buses, and pizza party, and generally an all-around good time. So everyone is invited to attend that tonight. And just as a side note, none of our buses have ever had a single accident, so must be working.
Sweet.
Congratulations, Jenny, good job.
Thank you very much.
What time? 5 o'clock?
Thank you, Jenny.
Thank you, Jenny.
Next, we have Louise with a request for to hold raffles at the Vermilion at Lake Powell.
Good morning, Louise.
Good morning. Well, today I have a request for authorization for the Vermilion and the Net Lake Powell committees to hold a raffle or fundraisers. Normally, it would be like buttons and like 50-50 raffles. It varies, so.
So for the buttons and then various raffles to help offset funding,
Yes,
or help with funding?
fundings for their individual POWs, yes.
Okay. Any questions for Louise? Motion to approve a request for authorization for the Vermilion and Net Lake June powwows?
Move.
Moved by Travis, second by Brandon? Who seconded that? Oh, Ray. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, silent, motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you, Louise.
Thank you, Louise. Next, we have Andy Datko and Ed Fairbanks. Letter of support for the MnDOT 1854 treaty boundary signage.
Around taking a picture of everyone.
Did we lose Mr. Fairbanks? Okay. Mhm. 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 Yeah, we pay $250, we pay $250. Welcome, Mr. Fairbanks.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Andy.
Good morning. So a few meetings ago, I had talked to you about a proposal coming through the 1854 Authority for putting up signage, 1854 treaty area signage at the boundaries of the ceded territory. And there was some general consensus that this was a good idea to do, but there were some specific questions for MnDOT in regards to the nature of the signage. And so I asked Mr. Fairbanks if he could come and talk a little bit about that and answer any further questions that you might have.
Good morning, Madam Chair and Council. The purpose of the first ever treaty boundary signing was in response to a letter from Norman Duchamp way back in 2012. And even though we had an immediate response from the commissioner, yes, we could do this, there was no policy. So when I came on board as the junior liaison under Linda Aiken, this was one of the things I first took on. So after a great deal of work internally, we sat down with the ACT, the Advocacy on Tribal Transportation, which Bois Forte is adequately and greatly represented by your two staff, came up with this policy. Now the policy is based on, there is no written authority to do this, so our commissioner is very proactive. So he said, since there's nothing that says we can't do this, let's do this. But to do it, we had to follow what's called the MUD, which is the standard signing process of the federal highway. And so the signs are boundary signs, so they're green and white. And the design was pretty much worked out to just try and depict the ceded territories that would, a person driving into your ceded area would know they're going into a special place where tribes retain hunting, fishing, and gathering rights. And that was basically the purpose of the signing. So the wording was worked out, the color and the design is pretty much dictated by the federal highway signing, what they call the uniform signing manual.
I know that was one of the questions at one of our 1854 meetings even, was regard to the color of the sign. Because it's a different type of signage within the state. I mean, it's never been done before, let's put it that way. And so we're wondering if we could get a different color for that sign. But I see now that it's part of the federal highway signage, I guess, regulations, so that kind of sounds like a no.
Correct. The other thing is, I hope that Bois Forte Nation does the bilingual signs, but you'll see the same thing. They're green and white because they're depicting a specific boundary.
I know that most of the tribes, for those that don't know that, most of the tribes, there is a bilingual, what did you call them?
They're bilingual signs.
Bilingual signs for the reservation boundaries, and you'll see them if you go to Leech Lake, White Earth, and I know that we are pursuing through various programs to obtain those signs for Bois Forte. So these would be specifically for the 1854 ceded territory, another groundbreaking thing, I think, on behalf of tribes. So,
and if I may, Madam Chair, the reason that we're here asking for the approval of the Bois Forte Nation is that we have decided in MnDOT to ensure that we are following the desires and directives of the treaty boundary signature tribes, that the request would come from all three to the tribal liaison. If we're going to do a sign for Bois Forte, it would go through your ACT member to the district. But instead of having you deal with 3 or 4 different districts, you would come directly to me, and then I would process it on your behalf of Bois Forte, Grand Portage, and Fond du Lac.
and there,
We just need a letter.
Correct.
yeah.
I know there was an effort to have a tri-party letter, but MnDOT only cares that the tribal governments acknowledge this as your action. So whether it's your minutes, or it's a separate letter or a joint letter, we really don't care. That's up to you and your partners.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Fairbanks? You answered mine, it was the color of the sign. And I know that there's specific placements on the state highways entering the 1854 ceded territory, so I think those are good placements. I thought there was one that wasn't showing on Grand Portage before on that map, but I hope that was added in there.
We're working on that. That's a really good question. I have a couple of very cool things up there. One is Grand Portage would like the state sign removed from the Canadian border and put at the exterior boundaries of Grand Portage, so I'm working on that. But the other question is, where does 1854 begin? And since it is a reservation, it's suggested that the 1854 sign would be on the external boundaries as you're on 61.
Okay.
One other question that had come up, the last time we talked about this, was whether or not MnDOT could pay for these signs.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
One of the things, interesting questions, I believe it came from Boys Fort Council, was who pays for the county signs, who pays for the township signs, who pays for the city signs? And the answer is we don't know, to be quite frank with you. It's sort of like, I can't remember the process, and please forgive me, but the process where you have a two-track road that ends up in a township inventory, that ends up in a county inventory, that ends up in a state inventory. We don't know who owns the right-of-way. Thus, we're doing the very unique study here, the centerline study with Boys Fort, to try and figure out who owns the right-of-way along the highway going within Boys Fort Nation. The answer is we don't know. We believe it's based on state authority to pay for those, and legal counsel's looking into that.
Okay.
But one of the things that is specific is, since it's new signing, that it would be a payer-own, payer-user, I think is something. It's an actual process. I have asked not only for the first question of why can't we pay for the signs, which I believe is going to be because they're new signs, but the second question I pose is why can't we add them to our inventory?
Okay.
Meaning that you place the brand new sign that doesn't exist before, and then it goes into MnDOT's inventory, so if there's an accident or we're doing a road construction and we need to replace it, it's
Yep.
at our expense, not at the tribe's expense. So we're working on that right now.
Okay, good.
So
But I
we would,
can't give you an affirmative answer, I
Okay.
apologize.
so you're saying we initially pay for it,
Correct.
and then after that, if it needs
Possible.
replacing, the state would?
That is what we're trying to do, correct, council member?
They add it to the inventory.
Yeah. So you'll add it, you will, you're gonna find that out for sure?
That is correct. And I believe that the answer is we can do that, based on everything I've read in the coordination with our signing folks. Not having the sign originally is the problem, and I believe that's where the tribes are gonna have to buy the initial sign.
Yeah, it seems like that's the answer that we got earlier, is that whatever jurisdiction it's in
Right.
pays for that, and since we're calling the 1854 ceded territory our jurisdiction, that we would pay. The colors, though, they're not real good, but I noticed that there is different colors on the Leech Lake sign. 'Cause they got looks like, unless that was superimposed on there, it looks like there was a Leech Lake logo.
Yes. The logos can be put on the signs. The question that we would have that adds to delay again would be, what logos would we put on? My argument would be, it would be those of the Minnesota tribes.
3.
Right, but I don't know how your partners feel in Wisconsin. You know, and
Oh,
then
I
at that
see.
point in time, it would be basically prohibitive to try and do that.
I do believe the 1854 logo and Fond du Lac's 1854 logo are different.
Right. So we'd have 3 logos on there if we were to do that, which would kind of crowd the sign a little bit.
Agreed. The problem in achieving, there's 2 different signs you will see, one for the freeway and one for your standard 60-mile-an-hour roads. We'd really be small, your logos would be
Yeah,
very small to
wouldn't
fit
see
that
'em
sign.
anyhow.
Any other questions for Ed or Andy regarding the signs? And do we have a motion to approve a letter of support to MnDOT for the 1854 treaty area signage, boundary signage?
Letter, I suppose, with a copy of the resolution.
Yeah.
I'll move.
Move to approve by Ray. Is there a second? Seconded by Dave. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, silent, motion carried.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, if I may, for one moment, I wanted to remind the council that I'm still targeting November to retire. And so Levi Brown, the replacement liaison, I'm hoping we can get him up here soon to introduce him to the council and have you continue your wonderful relationship with MinDOT. So,
Great.
thank you.
Thank you, Ed.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ed.
Next, we have Miranda, personnel policy.
Levi.
Good morning. So on the agenda, I've put on 3 revisions to the personnel policy. These came from discussion at a senior management meeting, about a month and a half ago, maybe 2 months ago. I wasn't in attendance at the meeting, but got the information from other directors. So the first policy that we have on the agenda today is a revision to section 304, interdepartment transfer. 304.2, I'm sorry, interdepartment transfer, and 304.3, posting. And so I'm not sure if your copies are colored?
Yeah.
Okay, so what we're changing or adding is in the blue font. So 304.2 is interdepartment transfer. And then 304.3, that first half of that sentence, first quarter of that sentence is what we're asking for revision.
For the audience's benefit, this interdepartment transfer policy reads, the executive director or appropriate senior management may fill a job vacancy in his/her respective department by transferring within the department. The individual recommended for transfer must be ratified by the Reservation Tribal Council. And then for the other part, in the posting part, when a job vacancy in the tribal government is not filled by an interdepartment transfer, then the job openings are to be publicly posted in the form of a job announcement, and that's the same for a minimum of 5 days. What's bringing this issue up or back, I guess, is that the tribal council and HR and other senior management and whoever are really dealing with workforce issues, and we're finding that, and this is for not just Bois Forte, but for across the state and all over the country, actually, workforce numbers just aren't there anymore like they used to be. And so some of the things that we're learning by going to some of these meetings is that we need to market ourselves for people to come work for us, even our own band members. And what are things that we can do to have people come to work here at Bois Forte? And why would we want our band members to come work for us? What are some of the things that, why do we want people to come work? Why would you want to work for us? And so some of the things that were mentioned was interdepartment transfers. And the ability to work your way up or get a promotion, so to say, because right now there's nothing in place for that. And so that's why this was a discussion item and now is on the agenda.
And just for clarification, we used to have this policy.
Yes.
And it was abolished a few years ago, and so it's pretty much the same language that we had before when this policy was in effect.
I just want to, got a question and make a comment or two. I just want everybody to understand that it's not an automatic process. There's not always an automatic transfer, because the language says may fill a job. So it's up to the discretion of the senior management person, whether that through the evaluations they had of that person that they're capable of going to the next position. So the person has to be qualified and show that they can do the job. It's not just automatic. I got a question, I guess, about It mentions the executive director or appropriate senior management may fill a job vacancy. Does that mean, you know, directly under the executive director or the senior management? Does that mean that he could transfer somebody into the senior management position?
No, I guess there's a few departments that I do directly oversee,
Oh, the Heritage
Okay.
their staff that are there.
Heritage Center, urban
Okay,
offices.
Yeah.
So it
Yeah,
would be the
maybe that
departments that you
Yeah.
supervise, so that might need to be
Okay, maybe you need
clarified.
to clarify that in there, because as I read it, that's what it looks like to me, that if these senior management people are under the executive director, he would have authority, if there's a vacancy of a senior management person, to appoint them. Am I,
That's
Thank you.
correct, but
Yeah.
also it would need to come to you as the tribal council. And if
Right.
you said,
Oh,
no,
yeah,
we
right.
want to
Yeah.
post it.
but I just wanted to, but there's only specific departments that he has that supervision over.
Mhm.
So those might have to be clarified in there. Can you do that somehow? Yeah. And then, just a minor thing, in the second one, I think there's a misprint there. The word should be is and not in.
It's not filled.
Oh, yep, I see that.
I missed that one. Right there,
I'd
Dave.
hate to have it go to print with that error in there.
Thank you for pointing that out.
Yes.
Okay, that's all I have. Thanks.
So I think what we could do is just put at the end of that, this does not include appointments to a senior management position.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah. I'd like to use an example here just to explain that it has to, people have to have the skills and the merits to be transferred. It can't be just because so-and-so is my relative or whatever, because that's what we hear, and that's not true. This is where, for example, we have some people in our accounting division who are band members who are taking accounting degrees. And what's happening is our workforce is aging. I mean, we're getting older, and we have some retirements coming up. And so we know that these individuals are going to retire within the next 5 years. So these two band members that are doing their accounting degrees have the opportunity to move up in the system. And so by allowing this transfer policy, it's enabling our tribal members and our employees to better themselves and work towards a degree or work towards something that they've wanted to do with their lives. And so that's why a lot of businesses do this, and that's how you recruit people in, is by allowing them that ability to better themselves and make their way up the ladder. And so, kudos to those band members that are working on their degrees while working here. We do allow that, and that's something that we can offer to other band members that may be looking for employment, that, you come here and start working on something that you're interested in, whether it be in DNR or accounting or healthcare, you might have the ability to make your way up to different positions. So that was just an explanation on that. Any other questions on the transfer policy? If not, I'd like to call for a motion to approve with those additions and corrections. Moved by Ray, is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Travis. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Silent? Motion carried. Okay.
The next item on the agenda is a revision to the personnel policy again. This would be section 409, telecommuting.
Oh.
We don't have a telecommuting policy. Do I have them in the wrong order?
Yeah, that's okay.
Sorry. You want me to do the other one first?
We've
Go in
got
order?
we've got the, social media policy.
Okay, well, let's do the social media policy, I'm sorry.
Okay.
This social media policy has been presented to the council, about 2 or 3 times. This again is the same policy that was drafted a few years ago by Mark Anderson. I think we had some input by Randy Long, the IT director. And we don't have a social media policy for the tribal government. I think what we need to do is really, put ourselves out there. For an example, the job descriptions, job announcements. We email those out to those band members who are interested in receiving, our emails. We also email them out so they are posted on bulletin boards. The younger generation aren't looking at emails. They're looking at social media. They're looking at Twitter, they're looking at Snapchat, so we really need to update our practices for the times. And so this social media policy is something that I feel that we need. I think there's a number of directors that feel that we need this. So I hope you pass it.
I guess my take on it is it looks a lot, one of the things I see in there that stands out, which has the effect of reflecting negatively on the Boys Fort tribal government. And for me, that goes with the territory of our job. And I just look at it, and about the only thing I could see a social media policy for would be employee personnel matters until they're finished. Things that are truly confidential. The rest of it, whether you're an employee or not or whatever, I think you have a right to speak your mind, and no matter where it's at. And the social media policy, to me it looks like it's an attempt to stop employees or whatever from talking what they feel about Boys Fort tribal government. And one of the things we need to address that should have been addressed many years ago is the fact that these are public offices. These are public positions. And I've said it before, and I'll keep saying it, that when you hold a public office, everything in your government should be open. And that's from the salaries all the way down. Everything. That's what a public office is. So, and I believe that that's part of the reason we are where we are, is this type of stuff. When people attempt to hide different things or not talk about different things. That's my take on it.
Don?
One of the things that the social media policy would help in is those negative things that are being said about you guys, especially during this campaign season. I read a post on Tribal Affairs that the 2 incumbents are cause for the election being the way it is today. Now, before I
I used to get on there and comment, but made me too mad. I mean, to speak my mind on there, because they're not hearing it anyway. But the election process, you could put that on your Boys Fort webpage. And if you had a Facebook page, you could put that on there, which would alleviate people believing what's being said on tribal affairs. There's not many people that believe that, but one will tell another one, and then it'll just go on and on. So I think
I also believe that too, that I turn to see and look that it gives, it gives our directors and our staff an opportunity to defend themselves, as long as they're not, as long as it's not a personnel case. I see it the other way, that our staff can go on and defend their programs, defend themselves, and that to me, I would like to see that. Just setting the record straight, I would like to see our staff be able to do that.
another instance is they were posting about Taro a few months back, about Taro not finding jobs for people and not seeing, jobs that are being created out there or whatever. And I had a client come up to me and say, Don, that wasn't even true what was posted on social media. I went to that site and asked them for a job. They said they're not hiring. I said, well, that's what you get for believing that. You should have come to me. I know. So a lot of people are believing that crap on there, and it's not going to stop until you guys combat it. Get on there and post things. Post the election, the stuff that's going on with the election now, because they get a wrong idea. In the Boys Fort newspaper, there is the primary results. And Timber J, they got the contest, which is right, confusing to people. Thank you.
Thank you, Don.
Thanks, Don. I just have a comment. I'm uncomfortable with this policy the way it's written too. I think we need some kind of a policy in regard to this, but I think it needs a lot of work and a lot of thought needs to go into it. I think about when I took the oath of office, and one of the things, that we take an oath to is that we'll uphold the U.S. Constitution. And to me, the way this is written, it's almost seems like a direct violation of the First Amendment, the right to free speech. And so I think the wording of it and what it does, it's vague, and what it's identifying is negative, and I don't think it addresses consequences. But the main thing is, I'm uncomfortable with it not supporting, or it seems to be in violation of the First Amendment. I guess I would compare it to an order coming out of the White House saying that you can't say anything bad about us. And that would cause a revolution in the country, and that's basically what we're saying is, don't say anything negative about us. And I don't think the people want that. They want to, and they have the right of free speech under the First Amendment.
Well, I would agree with that, Ray, that they do have the right to free speech. I think you'd be hard pressed to find somebody who doesn't agree with that. This policy was written by Mark Anderson, and so I don't believe we're violating the Constitution or anything like that. And I guess addressing the negativity, if I went on there and I said, darn it, Corey Strong didn't give me a raise, or, whatever. Yeah, I can do that, but at the same time, I also have the responsibility as an employee to myself and the tribal government to bring those issues to Corey. And so if an employee, wants to go on social media and bash another department, bash another whatever, they still should be communicating with that department, with that supervisor, because as employees, that's how you get things fixed. I mean, there is the other avenue of going on Facebook or social media, but really that employee should be talking to that department, talking to that program.
Sidra?
I'd like to
sorry,
just bring
Ray.
up bring light to some things that have been happening in the world with regards to social media. Sometimes you've seen posts where representatives from companies make very racial or very disparaging remarks, and it gets back to their employers, and those employers will fire them because they're representing their company. I know on my Facebook page it says that I work for the Bois Forte Tribal Government. So if I make a post very racially motivated or disparaging to the tribal government or to my fellow people, I'm publicly stating that I'm representing the Bois Forte Tribal Government, and I think that we should probably keep that in mind too. And it all boils down to being responsible and using your noodle when you're posting publicly. But I think that we do have to kind of, unfortunately, in this day and age, police, I guess, protect ourselves and protect our employees with policies, I guess, somehow. And I don't really have an answer, but that's just kind of a comment that I have.
Thank you, Sidra. Sorry, I cut you.
No, that's all right. I just think I can't support the policy the way it is. It's gotta be, it needs some work. If Mark, I don't believe it was well thought through, even by Mark. I have talked to Mark recently about this, and doesn't sound like it's something he agrees with.
Stuff he does.
Yeah, do we table it?
About half of his stuff he doesn't agree with.
Let's, Barb?
I think that having a Facebook page and a web page for the tribal government is a good idea, but I think that having somebody else write it is really not a good idea. I think what needs to happen is to ask the employees and the community to get together and find out what they want. I think the information is meant for the band members, and I think that's who needs to decide how this is to happen. I mean, this is open government, and the information is for the band members, and I think that's who needs to create it. That's who needs to decide what needs to go into it, how it's being developed, and what they want on it, what they want out of this information. And that includes the employees, because it does involve them, and not all of the employees are band members. So,
Thank you, Barb. That was my question, was if the employees also had a chance to look at it. But I'm not, I don't know if the employees got a chance to look at this policy. I know you mentioned it was, excuse me, George, it was done a few years. How long ago was this done? Do you know? Offhand, 2, 3, 4?
No, quite a while ago, because it says MySpace in there, and MySpace hasn't been around for years.
Okay.
This was given to senior management. Again, I don't know if they, I don't know if they shared it with their employees. I asked for comments and feedback, did receive a little bit of comments and feedback.
Okay. Okay, George?
I don't know, I would suggest just tabling it and then getting more input.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't really seem like it's inclusive, especially from opposition. I mean, you're right, it should be open, and those comments should be taken, or at least given some type of venue where they can voice their concerns. One of the things that I've always kind of noticed here since I started was I guess individuals, like even the program directors and maybe even the commissioners, wanting to share information publicly. I mean, we've, as the radio station manager and being a community station and being owned by the Boys Fort Band itself, the tribal government, I think it's really important that we use that, these public channels, communication channels, to communicate with the band membership. I would like to see, you know, they want answers, they want information. Of course, that's going to drive a lot more questions, a lot more engagement, but that's kind of what you guys signed up for.
Yep.
And that's something that even the working in tribal government, it's a public institution, and they're representative of the public and its dollars, and I think it's appropriate that they are able to ask these questions, maybe not in a gotcha, confrontive manner, but to be respectful and to create an arena where you know, our band members can ask these questions and get it straight from the source, you know, of what actually are the conditions, you know, because there's a lot of the things that we have to be aware of as program directors or managers of federal dollars that I guess inhibit, you know, us freely just saying, go ahead and do it. I mean, that's just not the way we work. So that's something that I think our people have to understand, you know, that there might be some programs that are under financial pressure from the federal government, and they have to know those conditions and what they can do to help that along. Call their congressman, those types of activities. So I would like to see, you know, this thing tabled or whatever it is, or get more input, and also encourage the tribal government to get more engaged, or at least engage the tribal membership through the radio station and get that information out there. That way you can counter, you know, a lot of this information that's being passed around. Maybe you hear something about whatever it might be, and you just say, well, you know, come on the station, and we'll allow you time to address these issues, and just, you know, put it out there, and then you'll get more feedback, and then it just goes on from there. We can design it however you guys want to make it, you know. I mean, we can make it like a propaganda machine and just one way it. No. But other ways you could do it is just create a live telephone call, a live engagement. You could do it at a community forum. You could do it many ways, and we're definitely able to do that for the membership or whatever.
Good points, George. Thank you very much for that. I think that's an excellent idea. You know, we do have our radio station here, and I do believe that, you know, that's a good way of getting information out to the people, because there's a lot of people that listen to KBFT, and I hear it on just about everywhere I go within the listening area, and a lot of people are listening, so I think that's a good point. Any other comments?
I think one of the best pieces of advice or words that I've heard in a long time came from one of my best buddies. He told me, you know, the truth don't give a blank about feelings. You know, something is either true or it isn't, and you know, that goes both ways. And to me, you know, whether it's social media or whatever, I know what I signed up for. And, you know, people think I have a problem with, certain individuals, putting my name to stuff. And, I might be a little backwards, but I respect it. I respect them putting my name to it. And the reason I don't take merit or whatever to it is because something is either true or it isn't. And if I know, it isn't, it doesn't bother me. But I respect the fact that they put their name to it and, and aim it at me. I respect that way more than I do people that are hugging you with one arm and stabbing you with the other. So that's my take on it.
Let's do a motion to table and get that community input, get the staff's input, not just senior management, and we'll talk with Mark again, but let's table it for now. So do I have a motion to table? Social media? Okay. Motion made to table by Ray. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Brandon. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, silent, motion carried. Telecommuting.
The next item is a telecommuting policy. This is a policy that we've never had. A few years ago, the tribal council was specifically asked if one of our employees could telecommute and was told no. But we found out through discussions that we do have staff telecommuting and we don't have a policy for it. And so this is, you'll see quite a few pages in here. Not all of this would go into the personnel policy. It's just more of guides and things that employees and supervisors would have to go through in order to get a telecommuting policy or be approved to telecommute, sorry. And this would mostly, mostly work for whatever reason, whatever reasons they have for asking for a telecommuting policy. It would not involve if Thursday I went to Vermilion because we wanted an HR presence in Vermilion. This would be a specific time frame, a specific schedule, and it would have a lot of information in the agreement, for the telecommuting, how the employee would be contacted. There's some software issues, that we need to be aware of and take care of. So it's more than just, being approved for a telecommuting policy. There's a lot of things that we need to consider and take into consideration, when we're allowing employees to do that. And if that's something that the tribal council does not want to approve, we also need that too, because our policies should follow our practice and vice versa.
It looks like it's an application process if individual wants to, or an agreement application. It says employee understands the telecommuting policy and guidelines. Employee completes the telecommuting guideline form, completes the telecommuting agreement application, and then submits it to their supervisor. So it's not just, I want to do this.
Mm-hmm.
There's certain processes that need to be followed, and
It's kind of similar to our alternate work schedule policy. So the employee and the supervisor needs to consider not only the employees, the pros and cons for the employee, but then also the pros and cons for the program and the tribal government. And so, there's a little more to it than just, I want to work from home every Friday. you know, you need to
Justify.
justify it, yeah. This was also given to senior management for their review and comments. And
Was-
so a lot of the comments that I did receive back are incorporated into the documents that you have before you.
Did Mark review this?
I sent it to him along with the social media policy, and I sent all 3 of these policies to him and didn't receive a response.
So Mark hasn't reviewed this policy. He didn't respond to you?
He didn't respond. I don't know if he's reviewed or not.
I don't know about the council, but, you know, I think it's a good recruitment tool for us to use, but without without a legal looking at it, I don't know, and I don't know why he didn't get back to you. I guess that's just my concern right now with this policy.
I agree. I think we need to hear from him on it. There's a lot of information in here. This is a long policy, so
It's,
I would, Chair, I think this is something else we should do. So we get a response from our attorney
from legal.
to make that motion to table a review from.
Okay. Okay, motion made by Ray to table the policy revision for telecommuting until we can get a legal review of the policy. Made by Ray, is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Travis, all in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, silent, motion carried. Miranda, I just had a question on the leave share policy that I added on. In the leave share policy that we have, it's where a employee has to be without leave for 2 weeks, and then they're eligible for leave share, correct? They have to be on leave without pay for 2 weeks, or,
The medical emergency has to last more than 2 weeks.
okay,
An employee can use leave during that time, but in order to be eligible for leave share, they need to suffer 40 hours of leave without pay, so 1 week,
oh, 1 week, okay.
yes.
Okay, because one of the concerns, I think that, and please explain to me why that was done that way. Here's a situation. We have an employee who has something going on. They end up getting 1 week of pay, and they're gone that next week or whatever. They can apply for leave share at that time. Will they get reimbursed for the week that they've lost?
Yes, if they get enough donations, leave donations, we would go back retroactively until, to the date that they first were on leave without pay.
Okay, so if they receive a paycheck for 1 week with leave without pay and then another one, they're actually gonna be they'll get 1 week of pay and they'll go with 3 weeks without pay, correct? Because you have to wait for the next pay period after you get that pay period?
It would depend on how dates worked out and things like that.
Okay, well, I'm just kind of doing it generally.
Yeah.
The only thing I'm concerned about with this is that, and I don't know why the 1 week was put in there, or if people were taking advantage of the program, or how it was set up, but I don't want our employees, this is just my personal opinion, it's really a hardship for our employees to go without pay for a long period of time due to something, you know, they really have no control over. And, you know, it puts that financial hardship on them, you know, even though they're gonna get reimbursed, it's that time period that they may not have income. Yeah.
The history of the leave share program is, there's been a lot of comments about it. There has been some abuse of the leave share program. Now that's a small percentage of the people who are approved for the leave share program. The recommendation of the 40 hours of leave without pay was given to the council. The council agreed with it when we discussed it. There has been comments, we shouldn't even have a leave share program, you know, and so that's the recommendations that were given to the council. The other recommendation was given to the council that we do not, if you're on intermittent leave, you are not eligible for leave share. And that was a comment made by the council. You know, it should be a one-time extended period for, you know, for example,
So you have surgery and you
surgery.
have complications after or
Yep.
whatever.
And so you're out of work for an extended period of time and not an intermittent type leave. And so, you know, we did take that out of the policy based on the comments of the council.
Is that something, and this is just for me, is that something that we could kind of get some input from the staff on with regards to it? You know, is it a hardship for them, or do they understand it and whatever? Because I just don't want them to be, when they're having a difficult time, to add more stress, or like Dave said, more stress or more hardship to them without having that. Because a lot of people are willing to donate leave to individuals, and I just don't feel that they should have to be without pay for long periods of time before they can be eligible. That's just my,
Is it in the policy that apply for leave share prior to leaving work?
We ask for them to do that, but that doesn't always happen.
And it's after the fact, and that's been allowed.
Yeah, we've, you know, if an employee puts in an application and it sits on a supervisor's desk for 3 weeks and we don't get it and the employee is out on leave, we're not gonna penalize the employee for, you know, getting that in late. A lot of times with FMLA, that's in our policy that we request a 30-day notice. Even with foreseeable medical emergencies such as childbirth, Family Medical Leave Act.
You need to request that before you go on.
We ask them to request it, but that doesn't always happen either.
But it's been done in the past that they've been given FMLE without applying prior to leaving?
Yes, yeah. We will always go back retroactively, you know, in situations with a medical emergency especially, because a lot of times, you know, it isn't plannable. You know, you get in an accident and you need surgery, you know, we're not gonna penalize the employee because they didn't get the applications in before they had to go out. But we request it, but we don't always receive it beforehand.
that's all
I need to talk to you after the meeting about one individual, and I don't wanna bring it up now because it's identifying who the person is.
Right.
Respect the privacy laws.
Okay, that was just my concerns with the leave share, as to, you know, is it causing a hardship by even just the 1 week we leave without pay?
Okay, so you want this sent out to staff for comments?
Yeah, just for comments, yeah, if you could, please. Thank you very much, though, Miranda, for going through these policies.
Okay, anything else?
No.
Okay,
Thank you.
Next, we have Randy with a GIS-related internship.
Morning, Randy.
Randy?
What I have before you is just a request to pull in a GIS internship to Mary Jean Becker. She's a recent graduate from Itasca Community College, and she's obtained her GIS certificate within that program. We have a need of updating the current GIS data set currently put together by Bennett Morris. And we need to keep this data up to date. The importance of this is so that for future grants we can pull accurate demographic information. We can keep all of our lake information up to date. Let's see. We have in need of training throughout several of our departments, DNR, IT, planning, in which I'm hoping this individual will come on board and work with several of our staff members to be able to teach us how to extract and manipulate this data ourselves without having the need of pulling in a specific contractor. If approved, I'd like to request this position to be at no more than a 4-week period at a rate of $12 per hour.
3-hour weeks?
4 weeks, yeah, 40.
4 weeks.
40-hour weeks?
Yes.
And you have the funds for this?
I've spoke with Kim on behalf of it, and we do have the funding to put this in place if the council so choose to move forward with it.
I'll move to approve.
Motion made by Ray to approve the GIS-related internship for Mary Jean Becker. Is there a second? Seconded by Dave. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, silent, motion carried.
Thanks.
Good. When would she start, Randy?
I believe I'll get in touch with her,
Okay.
but I'm hoping within 2 weeks.
Oh, good, good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have George with a contract for in progress.
Good morning again, George.
What I have in front of you is it's actually a proposal, it's more like an estimate. And we need to get recruiting for this event or events. What is proposed is 2 1-week workshops for our youth, and that would be in Net Lake and Tower. And the title of this is Living Histories, and we're hoping to develop some great video and also audio that we can air on the station. But the main component is to give the kids an activity and also some artistic exposure. And what this is it's $5,000 or $10,000 total. And because this is an estimate, we're just now working on a contract. At the end of that estimate, there are a couple options for the artists that we're going to be up. We'll solidify that. We'll also put some language in there. Mark reviewed it and suggested ownership issues. So we'll address those. And Chris Sorensen is on board with what Mark had commented on. So we'll get those addressed in the contract. And we'll also have specifics as far as those, I think it's 4 artists that are going to be coming up. So that's what I'm looking for is approval to move forward with the project and not to exceed $10,000.
What I really like about this project, first off, is that In Progress has been doing some excellent work with our youth, but also I see we have a peer mentor of Cecilia Martinez, who says began with In Progress in 2009 and made her first video about the jingle dress tradition. Now she's 14 and ensures herself to be a leader amongst youth and a dedicated storyteller. I mean, I really think this is an avenue for our youth to, like you say, get into the arts or whatever. And I just think this is a wonderful thing for our kids to be having access to. And living histories, I really like that. Good idea. Any questions on this for George? If not, I'll call for a motion to approve the contract for In Progress. Moved by Dave. Is there a second?
Just have a question.
Go ahead, Ray.
I see some notes in your document here. It says summer youth. That your target group?
It's all youth and all of our youth. But what we're trying to do is work it out so that they can have some of their time, because there's an education component to the summer youth work experience. So this will count towards that.
Usually 1 week they have for education. So it wouldn't be an additional week then.
Right. Yeah, it would be included.
I'll second then.
Okay, seconded by Ray. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Silent? Motion carried. Good job, George.
Thank you.
Three donations that were approved by the donation committee in front of you.
There's no questions on the donations. I'll call for a motion to approve the $75 donation to the Bob Carr event benefit, $300 for the Addiction Recovery Support Group, and $200 for the Division of Indian Work Services to American Indian Families. A blanket. Moved by Travis. Is there a second? Seconded by Dave. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Silent? Motion carried.
Last, we had the Net Lake court resolution that Mark had sent up.
Yeah, the resolution is regarding the funding for the court project. I'll read the resolution. Whereas the Boys Fort Band is a federally recognized Indian tribe organized under the Indian Reorganization Act of 1934 and operating under the revised constitution and bylaws of the MCT, and whereas the lawful governing body of the band is the Boys Fort Reservation Tribal Council, and it is authorized to operate programs and services that promote and enhance law enforcement and the delivery of judicial services to members of the band and others subject to the jurisdiction of the band. And whereas the Reservation Tribal Council has approved the renovation of the existing law enforcement and court building so that it is better suited for its purpose. And whereas the Reservation Tribal Council has determined that funding the renovation of the law enforcement and court building is a tribal government expenditure for which the use of net gaming revenues is proper as contemplated by Section 5 of Gaming Ordinance Number 43-94. And whereas the Reservation Tribal Council has previously approved a budget for Fortune Bay Resort and Casino pursuant to the Gaming Facility Management Ordinance that does not include an amount to be transferred to the tribal government for the renovation project. Now therefore be it resolved that the Boys Fort Reservation Tribal Council hereby authorizes an aggregate distribution in the amount of $900,000 from net gaming revenues for the renovation of the law enforcement and court building, and direct staff to coordinate the transfer of funds to enable the band to make timely payments to the contractors on the project. There was a question concerning ownership of the building with regards to the PD and the tribal court. And I believe Andy, is Andy here? Oh, I'm sorry, but I believe we did get an answer from Patty Olby stating that the BIA does own the law enforcement half of the building and the tribal government owns the tribal court side. So that was one of the questions that was asked. This resolution was requested by Fortune Bay, the Development Corporation at our Boys Fort Development Corps meeting. And so Mark drafted the resolution. Move to approve made by Ray. Is there a second? Seconded by Dave. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed?
Opposed.
Opposed.
Silent? All vote. There's a tie. I'll move to approve. With that, the motion is passed.
Nothing else on the agenda?
Motion to adjourn.
Move.
Moved by Travis. Is there a second? To adjourn?
Second.
Second by Ray. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Silent? Motion carried. Thank you, everybody.